Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to a match review for the 1-0 against Arsenal that happened on, I think was it Sunday or Saturday? I don't even remember at this point.
Some
It's all blending together at this
half
point.
four on Sunday.
Half four on Sunday, but yeah, it was a I don't know, it was a difficult game to watch, even though there were some positives compared to some of the other games, but it was almost been like a complete opposite of like the Fulham and the Wolves game, which should have been expected. But if we just get into what was happening before the game, what were your thoughts when you saw the lineup, Paul?
Um, it was good to see Dwight McNeil fit again and back in the lineup. Patterson obviously it came out, which I think was the right decision because the boy's been struggling since the start of the season with his form and his confidence. I think we played probably on paper at least the strongest team we had available. There was, maybe some people would have liked to have seen us go with two strikers and put Calvert-Lewin up top with Beto, but I didn't blame the manager for not risking that. Calvert-Lewin has in the past got injured because we've asked too much of him too soon. So giving him a chance to just be an impact player off the bench, even if he felt ready to start, I think will have done a lot for Calvert-Lewin's sort of mentality, hopefully. But yeah, just when I saw the lineup, I wouldn't say confident, but I was very hopeful we could get something out of the game, and sadly we couldn't. And we'll go into the performance now if you want to.
Yeah, I think it's hard to really going into the game to pick out something about the lineup. I think probably the main complaint from people, besides the two strikers, might have been Mikalenko playing. But I think to be fair to him, like I said, we'll get into it. I think he was one of the better performers in his defense, especially the second half. Anyway, where more in that second half, it felt like he was playing for something. But again, if he's only really playing one half football like that, it's hard to really get a judge. But not, I don't know, not many of the players really did stand out for positive performances. I'd say maybe Bramford's the only one I can think of for the full game anyway that really stood out.
Yeah, I thought that both the centre halves did well, considering they had a lot to do in the game. It wasn't like Arsenal were barely attacking us, was it? But Bramthwaite looked steady as a rock, looked completely at home at this level. Tarkowski had one of his better games. Tarkowski is, I think, a good. He's one of our better players, and he has more good games than bad. But the game against Sheffield United was not one of his better games. He was quite poor in that one, so it was good to see Tarkowski get back to his usual levels. But yeah, apart from those two centre backs, I don't really think anyone came out of it with a lot of credit. Maybe Beto. I wouldn't be too harsh on Beto because the lad absolutely ran his heart out. No one got close to him. He didn't have enough support. He was chasing after shadows all day, and he looked absolutely knackered by the time we did bring him off in the second half. And I'd probably maybe go easy on Dwight McNeil as well. He's again coming back from an injury. I think he didn't finish the game. I know he came off, but I think he came off after the goal, didn't he? So he played 70 plus minutes, which is pretty decent for a player who's didn't have any pre-season, practically got injured, I think 1 or 2 weeks into the pre-season, and then didn't play again until that little cameo against Sheffield a couple of weeks ago. So Dwight McNeil's fitness wasn't all there. Beto had no service, so I don't really want to be having a go at them too much. But no, as a collective, the performance for me was just there was nothing to cling to. I felt very, very dispirited after watching that, and that's as dispirited as I felt in a long while. I've been angry, I've been let down, I've been sort of just ripping my hair out, but that was a game where I just kind of puffed my cheeks out and thought, oh, is this all Everton can give us? Because if it is, then Jesus, it's going to be a long old season.
Yeah, I think this is the worst I've seen the Dice Out Brigade as well, personally, because it's just, you look at it and I'm not going to blame him because I think you look at the talent he has, it's hard to really blame the manager. I don't think he's fault proof, and I think we can get into that a little later on, but I think it's hard for him to really pick up a lineup that could do anything against this Arsenal team. And I think it showed really. We were on the back foot for the entire game. I think I can probably pick like there was that little like 2-3 minute period toward the end of the first half where we got a few chances off. But again, it felt like whenever we got into a decent position, some of the players are just resulting, just going, yeah, we can't break this defense down. We're just going to shoot from 30 yards. And it just felt, I don't know. It felt like they just saw the formula of that one Damari Gray goal against Arsenal where he shot 3 or 4 times towards the end of the half, the end of the 90 minutes, and ended up nicking somewhat. But it felt like there was no initiative in the team. You could say the right thing. There was no. It felt like there was no real desire to attack. It was just, oh, if we can keep the score down, this ain't going to look so bad. Because I think every Everton fan on planet Earth knew the goal was coming eventually because it didn't matter how world class your defense was. The amount of chances they were getting, I think it was impossible to stop it at one point. And again, I think their goal was just a touch of class, really.
It, I won't mince my words. For me, I was watching the players and I thought this is a group, this is a team that doesn't even believe that they can get at Arsenal here. I don't think any of those players, or hardly any of them, really felt like they were going to score. I'm talking about Everton. Now it's like, as you said, it's like they were just sitting back waiting for the inevitable to happen. And I don't know why they felt like that. We've got a pretty decent record against Arsenal at Goodison Park over the last few years. I think was that their first time in 6 seasons that they beat us
Six,
at Goodison.
yes, first time in
Yeah,
6 years.
I think the last time they beat us was back in 2017. I think it
I
was
mean,
the game that sort of Ronald Koeman, wasn't it? It was a 5-2, from what
yeah,
I remember.
Wenger was still manager last time they beat us at Goodison Park.
Yeah, so it was a good while ago, and we've beaten Arsenal not only at Goodison but away at Arsenal as well. We beat at the Emirates in that time. In the 6 years since they last beat us, we beat them I think at least 3 times. We beat them under Angelotti at home, beat them Angelotti away in that COVID season, and I'm sure did we beat them last season?
What was
Yes, we did. Beat them.
Did the
Yeah, Sean
Mari
Dyche's
Greg
first game.
the Mari Greg? No, we drew with them. I think there. Oh, did we? No,
Yeah,
did we beat
four.
them?
No, no, that's four. That's 4 games I can think of.
And
Then we
then
beat
I
them at
think
home.
Rafa. I think even Rafa we beat them. I think Rafa was, or was it
That's
Frank?
the No, no. I know the games. We beat them both. We did the double over them in the COVID season when we had Angelotti. We beat them under Benitez, which was the Damari Gray goal, and we beat them last season, which was Sean Dyche's first game with the Tarkowski header. So
Yeah,
it
it
just
was
goes
1-0,
back
wasn't it?
to a
Yeah.
point of, yeah, I know Arsenal are a top side and they're probably going to win, or they're going to get 70 plus points this season. They're going to be right up there in the top four, for my opinion. But I don't know why we had such an inferiority complex against them,
I,
because we
I,
have beaten them plenty of times in the last few years and they hadn't come to Goodison and done anything for quite a few seasons. But I just thought we saw a group of players there who didn't have any belief whatsoever that they could lay a glove on Arsenal, and that's how it played out. And sorry, that attitude's not acceptable. We've seen some dreadful Everton sides over the years uh, go into teams and, if not get a result, at least fight really hard to try for a result, and just ultimately get done by a bit of class at the end. And for me, it wasn't a case of, oh, Arsenal just done us for a little bit of class. I think Arsenal didn't get out of first gear. So if anything, I think that performance told us how bad Everton were, rather than how good Arsenal were. I just can't. I think it was a training session for Arsenal. I really do.
yeah, I think they made it look easy in a sense, and I think, especially you look at the striker play with Nketiah, the lad was doing nothing all game and eventually got subbed off for it. Obviously Martinelli came off with the injury or whatever it was. I don't know what it was. It was just, I think he must have pulled something off. But then of course Trossard came on and absolutely ripped us to pieces. But I think, yeah, it didn't feel like Arsenal were even taking us seriously at certain points, with some of the stuff they were trying. It felt a lot more experimental for them. Like they were trying things out, new things, the corner technique, which, everyone was annoyed about with them wasting the time. But to me, it was like I didn't think we were going to score anyway. So it was like I saw, and I knew if we would have been in that position, we'd have been praising the players for doing that. So it's a thing where it's just, if Arsenal didn't even get out of first gear, I think we were in neutral the entire game. That was it. We maybe even in reverse the entire game.
It gave me the feeling of we were a League Two team who they had been drawn to play against in the League Cup midweek. They just came, as you said, they knew they could experiment a little bit. They knew they didn't have to go through the gears too much. They knew we weren't going to be able to trouble them. The only way we were going to score was if they did something stupid. If they gave away a penalty, or they made a stupid pass in a danger area of the pitch. It was really, really, as I said before, it was just really dispiriting to see. To think this is all Everton can come up with. And going back to the manager, I don't. It's not for me. It's not the manager's fault that Idrissa Gana Gueye couldn't pay a simple 5-yard pass. It wasn't the manager's fault that Onana didn't seem to have a clue what was going on around him and kept losing the ball dead cheaply. And it wasn't his fault that Ashley Cole still can't hit a simple set piece into the box. He can't beat the first man. That's not on the manager. But the reason I think the Dyche out brigade is getting louder and louder, and it's getting harder and harder for fans who don't necessarily like Sean Dyche, but are not in favour of just chopping the manager again. Why the criticism of Sean Dyche is ramping up is he's not saying the right things in his press conference afterwards. His press conference afterwards, he tried to make out like there was positive aspects to the performance, and I'm sorry, I'm not accepting anything like that. When people say it was a good defensive performance and we just got undone by a bit of class at the end, I'm just going to swear then. No, Arsenal didn't get out of first gear. If Arteta would have read them the riot act, and I think they have a drinks break, don't they, at certain times of the half, they'd have all gathered around Arteta and he'd have gone berserk at them and said, "This is terrible. You need to up your levels here." If Arsenal wanted to, they could have beat us 3 or 4-0 there, but they didn't because they're preserving energy. They've got a Champions League game, I think, tomorrow night. Arteta knew what he was doing. He knew that Arsenal didn't have to play better than a 6 out of 10 to get the results, and that's unacceptable. There should be no team comes to Goodison Park in a Premier League match, no matter how bad Everton are, no matter what problems we've got off the pitch, no matter how rubbish the squad is. No team should come to Goodison Park and just be able to have an absolute walk in the park win. It's not good enough. Like, throw some tackles in. It doesn't matter how bad a footballer you are or how bad the mood is around the place. It's not hard to throw a tackle in and get the crowd up, and none of them are willing to do that. Or it's not hard to drop the shoulder and try and dribble forwards and beat a man with it. None of them did that. I don't think we tried to go past the man once all day. So the performance for me, there was nothing positive about it, and I don't blame that all on the manager. It's the team's just rubbish. The team's not good. But when the manager and people who support the manager want to pretend like there were positives to take out of that game, then I don't know what to say to them. I really don't.
No, I think my problem is I think it just is going to end up in the same position again. We're just going to end up in the same position as last year. And then I don't know what they're thinking, because I don't know that if we've got the new owners by then, if we're not in administration by then, it's a thing where...
We won't be sacking Dyche for anyone who brings that, because we can't afford to sack Dyche. We really can't. We haven't got a pot to pee in. Mashiri is willing to apparently sell the club for no down payment. That's just how desperate he is to get out of here. He's completely checked out. I don't think he even pays attention to what results we're getting anymore. Mashiri certainly doesn't sit down and watch the game and think, "Oh, that wasn't good. I better think about making a change here." He's completely, wherever he is in Monaco, probably watching the snooker or something like that. And Ken Wright's apparently in hospital, or is not in hospital, or is sat in his office in London, wherever he is, just panicking over whether he's going to be kept on as chairman. I don't think there's anyone at the club at the moment who's in charge of this day-to-day operations enough to actually sit down and take the decision of, should I sack Sean Dyche and replace with someone else? I don't think there's anyone in place. And even if there was, I don't think we could afford it because of just how bad the books are. So I don't think Sean Dyche is going to go anywhere.
How long's his contract?
Soon for anyone who likes that. I'm not sure.
It's not that long, is it? I swear it's short, quite short.
I think it was 2.5 years. 2.5 years. So he's not been with us a year yet. He came in very late January, didn't he? The last day of January.
It'll be about 2 years on this year. Just under 2 years.
Yeah. No, his contract will run until the summer, because that's when all managers' contracts expires. They always expire at the end of a season, not mid-season. So if he came in and signed a 2.5-year deal in January of this year, it will run out in the summer of 2025, I think.
Yeah.
So he's here for a while.
Yeah, I think.
Or even if it's less than that, I don't think Dyche should have took an 18-month contract, because he hasn't been here that long. He's been here 8 months, if that. So he wouldn't have took an 18-month contract, I don't think. So he's got at least 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah, and I think it's hard, really, because I think, like I said, I think Pep Guardiola would still have us in a relegation battle. I think you could take any manager who's even the best managers at working with scraps in the world, and we wouldn't be doing much better. And it's because it's the situation we're in where it feels like there's no creativity in the team anywhere. There's no service to the striker. And, we're practically relying on someone like a Jack Harrison to come back from injury and turn into Messi, or something like that. That's what we're relying on for a bit of creativity, because it just feels like there's nothing in the team, and maybe that could mean a change in midfield or something along that lines. Because while I think Decore is box to box, I don't think he has those creative elements. I feel like he's more of a player who can run in on the end of a last ball, not someone who can create the chances. He's someone who more can finish off the chances. And again, Onana, I think he's a similar boat. And Idrissa Gueye is a weird one, because I actually don't think Idrissa Gueye has been that bad this season. But that game he was awful, and I don't want to say, oh, that means he has to get dropped, because I'm not surprised. I thought it was going to be James Garner out of the midfielders who got dropped. If he did, that was what I expected to happen, and it's hard to really give him a say of go, well, this is what he can do in midfield, because he hasn't played in midfield. But it just feels like there's just no creativity in this team, and if we, for example, what is it next? Brentford and Luton next. So I feel like Brentford's going to be the same as this all over again. But then Luton is who creates in the Luton game for us to score. That's the situation we're in now. And if we get to 10, 11 games, 12 games into the season and haven't won a game yet, and then, at that point, it's going to be...
Throw the towel in time, innit? Yeah.
It's at that point, it's where you've got to sack him and take a risk, because it might not be his fault, but I don't think there's a way on God's green earth you can recover that. I just don't think there's a way.
As I said, I'm not ardently anti-Dyche, but I understand why a lot of fans are getting frustrated with him, because it always comes back to what we say. Everton as a fan base, we are difficult, we are moody, but the one thing that you can't do as an Everton manager is you can't talk shite. That's just not who Everton's are as a fan base. It's a cultural thing. We don't like people who sit there in a press conference post match or in the TV and just say things that don't reflect what everyone's just seen on the pitch. So when he sits there in his post match and he says, "Oh, we defended really well, we did all of this," we're at home at Goodison we haven't won a game so far this season. We don't go into these games just wanting to defend well. We have to see some initiative from the side. So it's the mentality he had at Burnley, where if we defend well for 80 minutes and then we concede and we lose the game tightly, it doesn't really matter, because we're just going to go again next week and hopefully we'll get a lucky break. That's not going to get you very far at Everton. It's why Roberto Martinez ended up having the bad ending that he did. It's why Lampard got sacked. It's why no one likes Benitez. It's because they're not truth tellers. It just reeks of self-preservation. So when Sean Dyche sits there in a press conference and says that we're doing this right, we're doing that right, we just have to work on the small things, it's not, fans are sitting there thinking, you're not being honest with us here, you're just trying to defend yourself, you're just trying to take the heat off yourself. And I think that's what's annoying a lot of fans. A lot of fans are starting to believe that these comments that Sean Dyche is saying are not because he wants to encourage the players and he wants fans to keep their chins up and believe that we can still, end up all right this season. It's because he just wants to protect his own reputation. And if he did get sacked, he could turn around and say, "Oh well, it wasn't my fault. I tried to fix this, and no one was willing to listen." And if that does happen, I think he'd have a good point. If he did get sacked and he did come out and say, "Well, I was working in an impossible situation," fans would have sympathy for him, because we know he's in a bit of an impossible situation. But when he's just overtly saying stuff to save his own skin and protect himself, that's what's rubbing people up the wrong way. And I think that's why fans are increasingly turning on him. Fans are starting to feel like he's not trying to be honest with us, the supporters. He doesn't want us to keep faith in him and the supporters. He just wants to basically save himself all the grief he's getting from pundits who are starting to look at the results now and thinking maybe Sean Dyche is not as good as we thought he was.
Well, my thing is there is avidly, like, quality-wise, 3 worse teams in the league than us. There is. Like, the 3 promoted teams are awful. Some of the worst
We're
3
awful.
promoted... No, we are.
We're awful, though, Callum, mate.
We are, without a doubt. But, unfortunately, that blame has to fall on everyone involved. Not just the players, not just the manager. Because I think that's a big problem with the club sometimes, and I think with the fan base is the blame can just be shunted onto one person or one set of people. When it comes to performance on the pitch, when it comes to the board and stuff, when it comes to performance on the pitch, I feel like that's the situation we get stuck in. And I think that at this point now, there has to be some sort of change. He has to, at this point, it's time for the players and the manager to in a sense, to put the necks on the line to get results, because if they don't, in the end, it's going to negatively affect everyone involved because a relegation on your CV, not really well, multiple for Dyche, and a few of these players have been relegated before as well. It doesn't help the look on them. Even if they might be able to get the moves, it won't get them the moves they deserve. If Onana doesn't put in a really good performance for the rest, or doesn't stand out like he did last season, why are Man United going to want to buy him, or why are Chelsea going to want to buy him? Similar to other players around, it's a situation now where it looks like we're just dragging ourselves down to relegation at this point, because again, it's hard to look at this game and think and try to talk about positives, because there was one positive, and I think, well, there was one pair of positives, and that was the two centre backs, and that's probably it. That was it. I think Mykolenko had a period in the second half where he stood out, but at the same time, that's compared to Mykolenko standards. We're not comparing that to decent Premier League left back standards. We're comparing that to what he's produced at his time at the club.
It's as I keep mentioning, the whole game and the whole situation we're in, it's just dispiriting. It's turning from anger now to just apathy, where I think fans are just tired. Fans have had enough. Phil McNulty summed it up in his tweet after the game, and he said, the fan base, I just don't think has it in it. We don't have it in us, most of us, to go again and raise, and somehow drag this team over the line, because this group of players doesn't deserve a fan base to drag it over the line. They've let us down constantly, and so many of them are players who 10 years ago wouldn't have got a sniff of wearing the Everton jersey, and this manager would not have got a sniff of managing the football club if we weren't in the dire situation we were in 5 years ago, when we were a team that was still knocking around the top half. We were finishing 8th, and we weren't as good as the top 6, but we weren't anywhere near relegation material. Sean Dyche wouldn't have been anywhere near the club then, and neither would most of the players we've got in our teams, even the ones who we think are some of the better performers. Said James Tarkowski isn't anywhere close to the level that Phil Jagielka was as a defender. Dwight McNeil wasn't anywhere close to the level that Stephen Pienaar was as a left winger. Even Onana isn't anywhere close to the level, I don't think, that James McCarthy was in that one season under Martinez, and Garner wasn't anywhere close to the sitter, the number 6 that Gareth Barry was. These are all teams that we had in the not so distant past, and it's so jarring and dispiriting for fans to just think that's how far we've fallen so quickly. And I can't believe we're having the conversation of, there's 3 teams that are worse than us. But Everton, at the end of the day, I can't believe that's what we're clinging to. The fact that there's 3 teams who are going to get less points than us over the course of a season, and that will be what saves us. I mean, bloody hell. I think everyone's just had enough, and everyone's fed up, and everyone just kind of is waiting for the inevitable to happen now. Hopefully it doesn't, and we escape it again. But if we stay up this season, then I don't think there's another example in English football history of a team or a football club that over a 3-4 year spell did more to get itself relegated, yet somehow survived. I can't think of a team that has survived 3 back-to-back relegation battles. Sunderland and Swansea survived a year, did it a couple of times. They survived a season or two, but it always tends to be that 3rd season when you're down there where it finally gets you, doesn't it? So if Everton somehow survived this season, then I don't think anyone deserves credit for it. I really don't. I think it's just, again, counting our unlucky stars that somehow there ended up being 3 teams worse than us, rather than us dragging ourselves out of the mess.
I would say the only way, don't get me right, it's still early enough in the season to the point where a few wins changes everything. It is still at that point, because, to be fair, the teams towards the bottom of the table, quite a lot of them have stunk. And that's again, if we survive, I feel like it's the story of the last few seasons has been, we've got lucky that there were teams worse than us. And like you said, we shouldn't ever be in that position. But I think we're just getting lucky that it feels like the quality in the Premier League towards the bottom anyway is lesser than it has been in the past. Because you think of 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, this team gets relegated, because there's just, the thing is as well, is you look at a lot of the teams that survive through, not having the talent, is a lot of them have the fight. It feels like this Everton team only really gets that fight when, like you said, when the fans have to dial everything up to 11, and after, we have to treat every game like a cup final. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to see, and it's obviously it shows how passionate the fan base is. But it's not going to be like that every game because it's just unrealistic expectations, isn't it? You look at the best atmospheres in the world for foreign teams. A lot of them aren't like that every game. There's a very, very small few that can do that. And what are the really like? What are the board and what are people expecting when you're losing every week? It's gonna sap the spirit out of you really. And you look at it and go, what happens and what's going to be the catalyst for changing this team? And it's hard to find. To be honest with you, it's hard to really point at something and go, this could be what changes it. And the sack Dyche Brigade's getting so strong now because that's the only thing people are clamoring it onto that could change something. Because you look at what's currently in the club, the manager and the players, I don't think there is that catalyst for change. And the only desperate hope there is that a new manager change could change everything. But as we've seen over the past few years, even if it changes something until the end of the season, we're just going to get dragged back into this position again.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But a lot of people are just wanting Dyche out because they somehow in their minds have convinced themselves that a new manager will come in and we'll have a bounce and we'll get ourselves out of trouble. And I don't agree with that. I don't really think there's any manager who realistically will look at Everton and think, yeah, I'll take that job on, and they'll come in and fix anything. You'll always get your caretakers, guys will stick their hands up and say, yeah, I'll take Everton for a couple of weeks or a couple of months for a fat pay packet. Sam Allardyce just done it with Leeds. So you'll get a Sam Allardyce or someone like him who'll come in for a little while for a big chunk of change, but they won't put any foundations down. They won't fix any problems. Even if they do manage to shit house the odd few points for us, it's not going to make anything better. But go back to what I said before. A lot of the reason the sort of the criticism and people are getting really, really anti-Dyche, he's not helping himself with these things he's coming out with. As I said, when you're saying, the fan base is tired, the fan base can't see any light at the end of the tunnel. That's not helped when you, as a fan base, you sit there and you listen to people in the club just telling you stuff that just doesn't ring true. You're saying, it's only the little percentages. We're close to winning games. You say the teams down the bottom have stunk. For me, Callum, mate, the two Fulham and Wolves aside, we have absolutely stunk. We stunk against Aston Villa. We stunk in this game, and we stunk against Sheffield. Sheffield will not win 5 games this season. I'd be shocked if Sheffield get 25 points. And we had to basically rely on a Jordan Pickford wonder save, a double save to get away from losing against them. Sheffield United, I'd be shocked if they break the 25-point barrier, and we're having to go there and go life and death with them to get away with a point. And again, that's not all on the manager. It's not his fault that certain players go out there and just forget that they're Premier League level players and just have stinkers. But at some point, a manager's got to start telling the truth in press conferences and stop making excuses, which it feels like Dyche has been doing too much of recently. So I'm just deflated, mate. I'm just really, really deflated. And as you said, we need something to go right for us somewhere. We just need to get a big result from somewhere. We need someone from the club who is really unpopular to step down, whether it's Ken Wright officially being removed as chairman, whether it's Mashiri officially leaving and selling all his shares, whether it's the 777 move coming off, but they do something or say something that reassures everyone that they're not the Cowboys that we all assuming they are, whether it's, some other my fairy godmother comes out of the ether and just announces that they want to buy the club and, they're a perfect owner on paper. We just need something crazy to happen, something crazy positive to turn the mood around, because if the mood carries on the way it is, I just don't see how Everton are getting out of this, because the only way we get out of it is if the fans lift us again. And listening to me, I consider myself a fan who just hasn't got it in me to go to that, turn it up to 11 again. I really haven't.
No, and I think it's impossible to expect that. Like I said, it's impossible to expect after every season, because at the end, in the past season, we've been able to latch on to positives. Richarlison in the season before he went to Tottenham and his performances towards the end of the season. Last season, there wasn't much, but in the first few games against Dyche, there were at least signs beating Arsenal. There was who was it? Was it Spurs? Michael Keane scored that really good goal against, and we nicked the draw. Was it Spurs?
Yeah.
There were a few examples to at least pick from and go, okay, there is something here. Right now, and we don't want to be sat here all day, but there's no positives to pick. There's maybe a single player that stood out, for us. And that's it. That if that's the positives where I think a sink to that a single player put in a good performance, then yeah, the fans are going to be deflated. And like I said, it's you look at it like again. I don't think there was a planet where we win that game. I just don't because you look at it. Arsenal didn't, like you said, Arsenal didn't have to get out of first gear because if we would have stepped up, Arsenal had another 2 or 3 gears to step up to if they needed to, and we all know that because we've all seen it. And Arsenal have shown in the past that they can slip in games like this. They've done it this season against Fulham, but at the same time, Fulham were a much better side than us, and it is mental to say that a Fulham team that got promoted 2 years ago is a completely different class to us right now. That Fulham team that's taking our best players and even stuff like that. You look at it and go, whereas the hope is basically what is somehow stealing something from Brentford and then hoping that Luton are worse than us. That's what it is. And I think one thing we will mention about the Arsenal game before we finish up is what did you think about the whole sub situation? Because again, that's been something that practically every game there's been complaints about. What are your thoughts on the whole not using the bench situation or not using them until it's at the dire end of the game, just to waste a bit of time?
As I mentioned, I didn't have a problem with him going one striker up top and then swapping Beto out when he ran himself into the ground, but I think he needed to change that midfield three sooner, and he needs to change that midfield three for the next few games because Onana, Decore, and Onana, it's not working. Is it? I can see why he went with it last season, why he stuck with it this season, because they're all high energy players. They're all players who are not afraid of a tackle. But Onana, I think Onana and Gay particularly, I think they're both trying to do the same job in the same team. They both want to sit and be the six, and they've both got strengths everyone doesn't have. Onana's obviously got the presence, he's got the physicality, but he hasn't got anywhere near the awareness of what's going on around him, and he's very lackadaisical in possession at times. Whereas Gay is the other part, the other side of that. I think Gay is very good at reading the play, but when he's on the ball, he just makes so many bad decisions. He really does think that he's a sitter who can spray the ball all around, the opposition half. He's not. He can't pass the ball 5 yards. Garner, he really can't. If he's going to be in the Everton team, he needs to just sit on the halfway line and never cross it and just tackle everyone that moves and then release it quickly. He can't be getting his head up and trying to pick out passes like he tries to do. So James Garner didn't have a good time of it in the cup game a few weeks ago when he played in midfield, but hopefully that was a one-off, and you'd put hopefully we see James Garner back in the team for either Onana or Garner Gay, because the last few games we've had those two together, I just think they get each other's way, and it leaves Decore kind of just not really knowing where he needs to be. He's trying to cover for the two fellas in midfield with him, who are just kind of getting all sixes and sevens. So yeah, I don't really blame. I don't think the reason we didn't lose the game or come anywhere close to salvaging the game wasn't because Sean Dyche made some bad decisions from the bench. I think it was just players going out there on the day, it's just not doing the simple task that's been asked of them. E.g., passing the ball 5 yards when you get it. E.g., knowing what players around you, Arsenal players, opposition. E.g., making a run and making and trying to drag up the defense, stretch the defense a little bit. I just think the midfield for three has got to change.
Yeah, and I think before we end it up, would that you say be your biggest change we need to make before the Brentford game is getting rid of one of them and bringing in James Garner in the midfield?
Yes, there's no creativity amongst them. Decore's not a creative player. Onana's not a creative player. Gay is definitely not a creative player. I can see why Sean Dyche wanted to try and use that and why he felt it worked last season. There was a lot of energy in there, and if you're going to be a team that is backs against the wall, you're going to need players who win the ball back. But when you're in games, especially Goodison Park, where you need to take the initiative a little bit and you need to go and search for a goal, you need to have a player who's capable of unlocking a defence. You can't be playing all three of those because what's the striker for? What are you feeding the striker?
Nothing. Yeah, well, that and just get Ashley Young off set pieces, please. Just get Ashley Young off set pieces. I can't do it. I can't. The guy can't take a set piece. It's not 2013 anymore. 2014 when he could whip in a good dead ball. It's just not. I think having McNeil back he's much better at the corners, and I think so is James Garner, to be honest. And I think if both of them are in the side, Ashley Young should be nowhere near set pieces because it's not working, and it's arguably the biggest strength this team has probably
It's
is,
tight.
which
Yep.
it's not saying much, but the biggest strength this team has is being able to win a header from a set piece, being able to win something. Even the little strategy they had with Onana flicking it on. Who was that against? Where Onana was that Sheffield United, where Onana would
Yeah.
flick it on from the corner. That was working. It's just there was not, So you look at it and go, it's the clear biggest strength in the team. Why have someone who's repeatedly failed at the role now continuing to do it when they're, don't get me wrong, it's not like we've got James Ward-Prowse sitting there not taking them, but we have players who are clearly better. So those players need to be given a chance because, or else, we've shown that the ability to take set pieces can win us games under Sean Dyche. The last time we played Arsenal before this showed it, where we were solely reliant on set pieces to score and it worked. So I think that's another big change. That's mine anyway, is that I agree with the bringing James Garner in, but then just get Ashley Young off the set pieces as quickly as possible because it's awful. Like
It's insanity, isn't it? Repeating something over and over again when it doesn't work.
yeah, it's because it's like Dyche's entire reason is it worked in the past. Yeah, when he was 30, not 38. It's just that simple, really, and I think that's the biggest change. I think, or the two biggest changes. Because I agree with you that we need to make, or else there's just not a prayer of us even getting into the game. But yeah, I think that's all we're going to leave it on today. Thank you for coming on, Paul.
No worries, mate. Hopefully we sneak a good result from somewhere and it lifts the gloom a little bit. But as I said, it's hard to see any light anywhere at the moment.
If you did enjoy the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Everton Newsfeed, and we'll see you all for the next video on the Toffee Blues. Thank you for watching, everyone.